Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
So I'm trying to do a whole lot of different things today in this sermon. I'm just going to tell you. As we're mentioning, we're celebrating the spring equinox, which is a beautiful just acknowledgement of our Mother Earth and our relationship with the natural world. But I'm also on week 3 of a 4-part series on prayer. And I was like, how is this going to work? I had forgotten that we're doing the spring equinox when I planned this series. And so I chose, as today, seemingly by random, the prayer of surrender. And then I realized, oh, that's equinox. And then the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. That it was actually, God doing for me more than I could do for myself in my own mind. And we're going to get into what I mean by that. But what I really want to hold today is the prayer of surrender is when we do realize that we're a part of something bigger than just little old me. That's really what it's about. And so it does work, I hope. You can be the judge of that after I get through this. First of all, I want to tell you about a couple that were in marital counseling. And you don't have to raise your hand to know if you show that you've been there, but I have. So we've done this thing where, there's some conflict. We need a third party to help us find a way through it. And so it's a husband and wife in this case. And the therapist turns to the husband and says, "Is it true? Your wife told me that you don't buy her flowers." And he looked at the therapist, kind of hung his head, and he said, "To be truthful, I didn't even know she sold flowers." It's silly. There's a point here I'm trying to make as well. Don't buy her flowers. You don't buy her flowers. That can mean you don't purchase flowers for her. But it also means you don't purchase flowers from her, right? There are two perspectives on what that sentence might mean, and we're expecting it to be one, and that's why it's funny, because we're surprised by his response. What I'm going to ask you all to do today is put on your genius mind. Who's willing to be a genius today? Okay, here's how you do it. It's to be able to hold conflicting ideas in mind at the same time. Two paradoxical perspectives that they don't seem to make sense together, but they do. Depends on which perspective. Are you buying flowers for her or from her? And so today, I'm going to be talking about this idea of the prayer of surrender. And you might be saying, "Preacher man, I've been listening to you these last 2 weeks. You've been talking about I don't have to pray to some outside God to give me something I don't have. You've been telling me that I can speak my word, claim my good, open myself to receive the blessings of the universe. And now you're expecting me to surrender. To give what to whom?" You may be saying that, and maybe that's just me. But when you think about, I wrote that little speech because it serves a point. Speak my word, stand in my spiritual authority, receive my good. What's the theme you pick up in all that? Yeah. Does anybody else still have an ego? A few of you do. Then this sermon is for you. If the rest of you have transcended your ego, you can go get a cup of coffee. There's a thing that can happen when the ego thinks it's all spiritual. A spiritualized ego is a dangerous thing. Because you can begin to act in ways that are selfish and self-centered, and you can tell yourself that I'm just claiming my spiritual good. I'm one with the universe, and I ought to have that person who is in a different relationship. Oh no, you get what I'm saying? It can get crazy. I've seen it. I've done it. Not that, but I have done things when my ego gets a hold of this teaching that we have in Unity of self-empowerment and self-responsibility. The ego can get a hold of it and go some crazy places. So what I want to hold today is the idea that, yes, I am an expression of divine power. I can claim my good and absolutely receive the demonstration of it. That is true. And it's also truth that there's more than just me. How many of you have ever, I say this a lot, but when I'm teaching this idea, but have you ever stood beside the ocean and go, I'm really a big deal? No, what do we normally feel when we stand next to the ocean? A sense of humility, a sense of awe and wonder that something so vast is right here and I'm touching it. That is what we're hoping to get to. Then the ego is present, but it's not running the show in your spiritual growth. There's a story that Mary Morrissey uses to illustrate this point, or a similar point. The scientists decided to have a conversation with God and said, God, here's the deal. We've got it all worked out. No, we no longer need your help. We can clone. We can do molecular engineering. We do not need your help anymore. And God says, oh, that's fine. Let me just to make sure that you're on the right path. See if you can create humanity. You heard how I did it, right? I created man and woman out of the dust of the earth. And the scientist says, no problem. Bends over and God says, not so fast. Get your own dirt. How many of you right now are consciously beating your heart? Are you making that happen? No, you're not. There is something larger than your conscious mind which is in a conspiracy for your good, that is keeping you alive, that is sending the oxygen from that next breath to all the trillions of cells in your body, and you are not doing it. At least not the ego. But there is a part of some vast something that I call God. That's the biggest word I know. There is some infinite good of which I am a part. And when I can begin to surrender, get my little egoic nothingness. Emerson had this beautiful phrase, to get my bloated nothingness out of the way. Bloated nothingness. Doesn't that just say it? In 12 Steps, I heard people talk about, I'm just an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. I'm not much, but I'm all I think about. So what I'm going to ask you to do is not to throw out what we talked about the last 2 weeks with taking this empowering, personal empowering theology to take responsibility for our lives and create the life of our dreams using prayer, affirmative prayer. It works. But there is another side to this story. You don't buy her flowers. You don't buy her flowers. We're going to hold our genius mind here. So there's a teaching that comes from the integral world. Ken Wilber, who is sort of a philosopher, he calls himself a map maker. He has sought to take the religion, the wisdom from all the earth's religions and all philosophy and try to create a map and see how it all works. That there is one grand overall design, G-O-D, but it is demonstrating through human culture and human just humanity in so many beautiful ways. That what Wilber says is there are really only 3 perspectives on the divine. And he has linked them up with the parts of speech. So in the third person impersonal, there is the it, the cosmos. Everything is divine. All is one thing, it is divine. Then there's the second person, the thou, the you, that there is a divine presence I can be in relationship with. I can talk to God. God can love me. And there is the first person personal. I am divine. I am an expression of infinite power in a human experience. You can't stand in all 3 of those at the same time, can you? That there is a moment to claim divinity, to really stand in the truth and the power for myself and for my good. And then there is a time for, something loves me. And a time to go, it's all God. Everything is God. So a wonderful Baptist minister, yes, I said that right, who created a book called Integral Christianity, Paul Smith, he created an invocation. I'd like you to repeat after me. And if you choose to use your, there's a little body prayer to it, you can do it too. Like, infinite God, in whom I live and move and have my being. And then the next motion is like this. We go, intimate God, you are always with me. And then your hands across your heart, and we say, innermost God, I am the light of the world. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, and so we can be in all three of those places. We can own all of that understanding and perspective on God. There's a beautiful story in the Hebrew Scriptures. Many of you know it well. It's the book of Job. Do you know the story of Job? It's 40-something chapters, of which I will not read all of it today. But the basic story is that Job is a righteous man who is very blessed, has a wonderful life, a big family, and very successful and wealthy. And the tempter comes to God, and like that scientist earlier, and says, these are beautiful stories. I think they're meant to be metaphorical. Says, yeah, he loves you. He's righteous because you've taken really good care of him. Let me just take all that away and then see what happens. So the story here metaphysically is, are we dependent upon our material good? Are we dependent upon the conditions of our life to be okay? And all of that gets taken away. And Job is not happy. But he never renounces God. Now, he shakes his fist a little bit. He's like, why are you doing this to me? And then he has these great friends that come over, and they say, well, you're clearly doing something wrong. Oh, I'm sure none of us have ever done that to anybody. There used to be a thing in Unity. We called it metaphysical malpractice. When somebody got a cold, it's like, well, what's in your consciousness to attract that? We don't do that. We're invited to ask those questions of ourselves. I've been in this pattern before. What is it in my mind that keeps creating the same condition? That's a beautiful way to approach this teaching, but you never apply that to anyone else, okay? But that's what these friends were doing. And eventually, at the end of the story, we're going to cut to the chase. God takes Job up in a whirlwind and shows him all of creation, the Leviathan. And what's the thing that some people are saying that doesn't matter. There's a ground beast and a water beast, and the God asked Job says, do you know where the mountain goats have their babies? No, you don't know that. That Job is being shown a much bigger perspective on what life is and his part in it. And Job realizes that his present suffering, or it's in a larger scheme of thing, he's not the most important thing in the universe. That there is something larger. And when he realigns his mind, his consciousness with this vast power for good, his life is restored. There's a real message for us there. There are two little passages from Job I'd like to share with you. The first comes in chapter 22. It's when one of his friends is saying, you've got to realign your thoughts with God here, Job, to get it right. And he says, and if you do that, and this is chapter 22, verse 28, it says, then you shall decree a thing, and it will be established for you. So light will shine on your ways. This is a very popular verse in metaphysics, that we get the power to declare our word, to decree a thing, and light will shine on our ways. And it's beautiful. But then later, chapter 38, when God from the whirlwind is asking Job, where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determines its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? On what were its bases sunk? Where were its cornerstones laid? When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy, where were you? I do know that when we're going through something painful, it's hard to see anything beyond our pain. I have been there many times in my life. I do know that when we are struggling in our lives, the struggle is real and it's all we can think about. But having this relationship with a bigger God, having some infinite good that knows my name, it gives me an opportunity to rise up out of the depths of my sorrow and frustration and all of the struggle there and see that there is still something good happening. Something better is waiting for my attention, waiting for me to get with God. And that is the prayer of surrender. I can't fix this. Have you ever been in one of those? I can't fix him. Okay, now who's been in one of those? I can't make this right. I, in my power, as an individualized expression, having a human experience called Michael Gott, cannot run the universe. Whew, that's a relief. I am not trained to do that. I have not passed the test. I cannot do it all. And there is something, there's so many, here's the thing about the word God. I know it's problematic because many of us were damaged in religions that just had there's a lot of baggage attached to that word for some of us. I choose to still use that word because I haven't found a better one. But what I'm talking about, it's shorthand for everything. All that exists. That's what I'm talking about. So if you're not liking the word God, if it's conjuring up old images, I promise you that's not the God I'm talking about. There's a Unitarian minister one time on a plane. Somebody asked her what she did for a living. She said, I'm a minister. He said, well, I don't believe in God. She said, great. Tell me about the God you don't believe in, because I bet I don't believe in him either. But there is this bigger presence of life and intelligence that wants to move through us, but we have got to surrender the egoic need to control and to manage outcomes and manage other people. I want you to turn to the woman and say, to someone next to you and just say, you're not my job. Turn to somebody else and tell them, you're not my job. Whew, doesn't that feel good? That's not the same thing as you're on your own, good luck. It's not that. It's that I'm not here to manage you or your children. You know, God doesn't have grandkids. Have you ever heard that phrase? I love that. God has no grandchildren. They're yours to nurture and raise for a time, but they're having their own relationship of reality, their own relationship with God, their own path of becoming who they truly are. They're not yours to manage. And so what we're invited into is a prayer of surrender. So I want to share with you when I hear the word surrender, or when I used to hear the word surrender, I heard giving up, right? Anybody else? Wave the white flag, I give up. A few years ago, someone gave me a different understanding, and I really like it. It's not giving up, it's giving over. I'm giving over my need to control. I'm giving over my need to have everything come the way I think it ought to in my timing. Trusting that divine intelligence knows better than I do in this situation. On running the universe, God knows better than me. So I don't have to do that. So I want to talk about, and this is where I hope to tie it into our equinox celebration, and I think it's kind of interesting. It's not an either or. Sometimes we stand in that first person face of God where I do indeed declare my good, and I stand in it. What's the thing that Emma Curtis Hopkins used to say? There is good in this universe, and I ought to have it. That is a valid affirmation. There are times to simply, I am here on purpose. God is not wanting to deprive me of anything. I ought to have my good. And then there is another time when I say, God, I surrender. I don't know how to do this. It's not either or. As a matter of fact, it's a little bit of a dance. You might think of it as the directive and the receptive. There's a time when I'm going to claim my good, I'm going to affirm what is mine, and there is a time when I take my hands off and I trust that life itself knows how to live through me. We don't do one or the other forever. We do which one is needed now. Can you feel it? And guess what? You're not going to get a text telling you which one it is. I almost said telegram. What century am I in? I have never in my life seen a telegram. I don't know. Sometimes it just comes through. I must be channeling some 19th century minister now. You're going to know because you know which one is time. And here's another one. If you've beaten yourself bloody against that wall, try surrender. Just see, what could it hurt? And if you feel completely disempowered in your life, like I can't do anything, try an affirmative prayer. Try and tell them the truth about who you are. You will know. You will know which to do when. And sometimes it may be in the same prayer. You may do both. The dance here, the way I think about it, one step in the directive, I speak my word and transform my life. One step in the receptive, I surrender my will and my life to a higher power. Directive, I claim my good. Receptive, I surrender. And we don't do both steps at the same time. Jesus of Nazareth really shows us the way. In the Gospel of Luke is what I've been studying this week. And in Luke 22, this is near the end of Jesus' earthly ministry, where he's in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he says in chapter 22, verse 42, Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. That's affirming. Take this away. Nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done. Did you get that? Here's what I want. Your will be done. And in the last words recorded in the Gospel of Luke of Jesus' earthly life, 23:46, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. And when he had said this, he breathed his last. This same Jesus of Nazareth that forgave sins and healed the sick, raised the dead. Many historians agree the most single impactful human being to ever live in terms of what his teachings, his actions, his presence changed in human history. The most powerful man in history, you might say. His final prayer, I surrender. It's not either or. That we are here to be change agents of good. We are here to call into being the very life of our dreams and our deepest desire, and we are here to surrender to the greater life that is waiting for us. With God, all things are possible, Jesus says. The problem is we're not always with God. And so the invitation for this spring equinox, I'm going to go there. You're not going to go there. Gary's in the wings, usually waiting for me to get off so he can pray me in. No, but I'm going to go over there in just a second. There are deeper rhythms in life, in nature, in the earth. When you're tired, rest. That's a rhythm I missed for many years. When you're feeling ungrounded, go sit on the ground and lean against a tree. When you're feeling like none of it makes sense, observe the change of the seasons. There is a wisdom that now brings forth the green. This connecting to these deep rhythms of life is available for each of us. God wants to do magnificent things for you and through you. Are you willing to open to a bigger idea of who you are than you've ever known before? That is the prayer of surrender. And if no one has told you today how magnificent you are, how beautiful you are, if no one has told you today that they love you, I love you. God bless you.
As we did last year in our Equinox service, this is Dr. Joy Beth
Lufty, and she creates body prayers. And so I invite you to stand as you're able. And this is a song that I wrote many years ago. And Joy Beth has created a simple body prayer. I invite you to sing. The lyrics are on the screen. But more, I invite you to put this beautiful prayer of surrender into your body. I am a child of the living God, made in the image of perfect love. All that I am, all I've been given to you, my God, I surrender. I surrender. I am a child of the living God, made in the image of perfect love. All that I am, all I've been given to you, my God, I surrender. I surrender. I am a child of the living God, made in the image of perfect love. All that I am, all I've been given to you, my God, I surrender. I surrender. You're beautiful. One more time. I am a child of the living God, made in the image of perfect love. All that I am, all I've been given to you, my God, I surrender. I surrender. I surrender. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.